what's next. Life's a journey, never complex. A lifelong student, educators call. Guiding future, standing tall. Conscious parents, info hat on tight. Drove through decades, walked away for rights. From the motion pictures to the cosmic light. Contact D's journey, universal sight. Attempting to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Human experience hangout, come along. Kids, health, synaptic circle, singing our song. Random vlogs, life stories to tell. Each journey a beacon, wishing well. We all have incredible tales to share. Healing, activation, spreading care. Light the way, find the others. What's your mission, sisters and brothers? Attempting to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Human experience, hang out, come along. Kids, house, synaptic circle, singing our song. Random vlogs, life stories to tell. Each journey a beacon, wishing well. We all have incredible tales to share. Healing, activation, spreading care. Light the way, find the others. What's your mission, sisters and brothers? Attempting to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Rise, humanity, unity we seek. Community sharing, synaptic circle unique. Be the solution, live someone today. Assist in the rise, light the way. May this song lift whoever comes across, and may you do the same, no matter the cost. Spread the light, ignite the flame. In unity we rise, forever reclaim. Attempting to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence.
Howdy, and hello. Good afternoon. This is episode 31 of the High Vibe Human Experience Hangout, and I'm your host, Hattie Pop, and I'm here to have a high vibe conversation with fellow like minds who are being the solution out there, walking the walk, talking the talk, on their mission, following their bliss and passionately sharing their human experience. So super duper excited for today's guest. And hello to the chat. Hello, Midwest Night Watchers and Jane Chiro Sounds. Thank you for moderating all my crazy riffraff that show up. Hi, Woo Riders and Derek, Neil. Hello, Laura. Nice to see you again. So I have new headphones, if you did not notice. So I feel like I'm yelling. I kneeled on my other ones. Okay, let me do that. My guest today, I'm really excited, and I have to give a shout out to Lala Bright. So, fellow community member, Bigfoot paranormal member, she posted about my guest, and I'm like, holy smokes, I know this fella from almost like maybe 20 years ago from the old improv days in Hollywood. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mr. Steve Berg.
Hello, how are you? How are we today?
We are well. Thank
Good.
you. Thanks, Steve, for playing.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
Cool. And where are you calling in from? You're not in La La Land anymore, are you?
No, I moved a couple years ago. My parents were turning like early 80s, and I started freaking out because they were by themselves. So I moved back here, but I'm still I'm out in LA fairly often for work and stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, I took the opportunity of the pandemic to be able to leave LA for a little bit, but still do what I do. So
That's what's awesome.
It's nice.
Yes, he is IMDb-able. And and I know this crowd is probably very familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. So what about that? We want to talk a little entertainment before we dive into the
Whatever
woo?
you want. Absolutely. Sure.
Well, I mean, when that was 13, so that was way after I left. So I remember you because
Mhm.
I was house manager, but I was a very drunk one, so I missed everybody's
I
cues.
was too. I might have taken your position as the next drunk house manager.
It was so fun. Improv Olympic West was a
It
blast.
was.
They call it IO West, so that's where I met you. And
Mhm.
I was there for the fun. I mean, Derek Miller, best teacher out there. I was
Oh,
I was
yeah.
doing the
Great guy.
exchange. You know, you work and then you get the classes. And then I
Mhm.
went in crafty and left the world. But where did the world change for you after that? Like that was 2005, 6, I think. And
Yeah.
then what happened with you since then?
Well, I guess that was kind of around the time I started, like, working consistently, and I kept on performing live. Gosh, for another 10 years at least after that. But I wasn't just at iOS. I did like
Sure.
UCB and some other theaters in town. Tried to vary it up because I crave novelty, and yeah, no, it was just more of that, and got a little more serious about my career, and just kind of went further in that, and yeah, it was pretty great. Like I
Yeah.
don't mind, but yeah, I've always been hobbies are important to me. So, and to
Mhm. Mhm.
address my intellectual curiosities is an important aspect of my life. So I feel like being an actor is a good job when you can get the work. Obviously, it's been very weird and slow with strikes and stuff like that the last
I
couple of
know.
years,
Yeah.
and it's changing. I mean, I don't know if it's coming back the way it was.
I
It's
know.
and that's
I know.
okay. I think it's now an interesting time where I think the future is making your own stuff like you're doing. It's just whether people
And
like it or
you.
not. Yes, that is what I'm doing. I'm sure you have found it's quite gratifying to be totally in control of your own like artistic output.
I know, right? It is. It's
Yeah.
fun. And that little plug in the beginning there, my buddy Midwest Night Watcher and the Geezer Geeks, they helped me put that together. And I had to throw in the audition part in there because that's my story. But it is fun to be in control. So, Steve, host of High Strangeness. So I guess that brings us full circle to,
Yeah.
you host your own shows such as this, and you
Mhm.
talk. It's all things paranormal, or your focus is Bigfoot, really, isn't it?
No, not I mean,
Or
no,
no?
you're definitely right. It's definitely all things. I'm kind of an all-purpose weirdo where I am a deep, heavy, lifelong interest in like all like UFO ufology and just high strangeness. The weirder, the better. I love folklore. I love weird history. Now, like, it's funny because I think most people say, like, "Will you believe in all this stuff?" It's like, I really leave the word belief out of all this. Like, I don't have a belief system in anything in life, to be honest. I'm just very interested and have deeply passionate about odd, weird, esoteric things. And so, like,
Uh-huh.
I can't prove that any of them are real, but I think there's something to it, if that makes sense, you know? But
Yeah.
I think, like, I kind of like my philosophy in life is to never be certain about anything because then you stop learning. So when I think about UFOs today, I will think definitely differently in a year from now, and that's fun to me. So
It is fun, and this isn't new for you. Like Skinwalker Ranch was 2013, I think. But
yeah,
you, I think, from all my stalking that I did of you,
hmm
um, you started as a child with this interest, right? Like you
definitely,
were.
yeah.
So this isn't like a new thing. What? So when?
No,
How
no.
early? Mhm.
I mean, like, I'm not trying to brag. There's nothing. It's like bragging about being a UFO nerd, but like really like some of my earliest I don't remember being alive and not being really interested in this stuff. Like my mom tells me the first book I got with my library card was a book about UFOs and a book about magic. So I reckon I
Nice.
was around 5, but like it's just been something that's very it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't believe everyone's not really interested in this stuff, but I just never gave it up. It like now the way I'm into it has definitely changed and morphed and evolved over time where I grew up very credulous. I'm like believing everything, all the narratives, Area 51, all that stuff. Like, oh wow, wow, wow. Now I have a different like view and take on that stuff because you learn more and you learn that there's bad information out there. It doesn't make it any less fun, but it's like you just can't go in believing everything because you're going to get taken for a ride. Especially with UFOs, it's kind of a
Yeah.
toxic subject. It's a little dangerous.
Oh my gosh, yes, especially when you involve, I think, the military. I think I heard you on someone's show talking about that because
Yeah.
that's where things either get twisted or you get the cult of personalities out there, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
gets a little like, yeah. Mhm.
It does get dicey. I mean, there's just a history of and I don't, it's hard to tell if it's exactly the military, but like it's some one, putting bad information, disinformation out there, and
Mhm.
promising disclosure and all that stuff, and never delivering ever. And it's just kind of, so it's one of those things where there's a lot of UFO kind of activists, and I'm not trying to bag on them. It's just not for me. It's not what I'm interested in. But I
Mhm.
don't think there's going to come a day where the president's going to tell you everything you want to know. One, because I don't think they really know. I think they have more data, but like, I don't think they know what this stuff represents or means. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel it's a business. It's a big business, and why would you stop that cash cow? Keep them
no,
guessing because
there's
there's
no
new
reason.
waves of talking heads all the time, and
Always.
it's kind of the same regurgitated information.
You nailed it.
So I'm
It is the
fascinated,
same.
and yes, and something you had said on someone's show was what resonated, and why I was like, I have to reach out. Is you're same as me, interested in the human experience, like people's
Yeah.
stories, just Joe Schmo on the street.
That's
I
what
like to
matters.
hear their story. Yeah, because especially how they deliver it, or if
Yeah.
you can pick up on energy, you can
Yep.
see what's authentic and not. And
Mhm.
those matter to me. And unfortunately, those are the ones that are suppressed or they're not given the platform or the microphone.
Yeah.
So,
You're
yeah. Do you
definitely
meet?
right. You have to. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Please
No,
finish.
no, go, please.
Oh,
Oh, no.
you have to look harder for those. You're definitely right. But if you want to hear people's stories, even locally where you are, like I guess like we're talking about how I moved back to Nebraska, where I'm originally
Yes.
from, Omaha,
Mhm.
and I have like taken it upon myself to like try my best to document the weird history of Nebraska. And at first, I thought it was going to be a pretty easy job. I'm like, well, this will take about 6 months of really hard research, like on my spare time, if I work really hard. And I have found like I'm not even scratching the surface. But I mean, like, there's so much weird stuff, I believe, everywhere you look, if you just look hard enough. And there's so many stories. And like I do think like at first in my head I was kind of like, well, if it's not on Google, it never happened or it didn't exist. How wrong I was, Heidi. Like I've been talking to historians, going to libraries. I sift through newspapers.com, which is a wonderful resource for any researcher. It's like
Nice.
$40 a year. You get access to every old newspaper, but you can
Wow.
find
Cool.
so many stories. And so there's a lot
Wow.
out there. But yes, you're right.
Yeah.
They don't get the platform, but like if you're willing to look and get out there and
Yes.
talk to people, like you will hear some stories. All this stuff is
Yes.
still happening, like it didn't
Yeah.
go away.
And you do go out and talk to people, like, you go to the conferences and
I
things. Like,
do.
you've gone to some conferences I hadn't heard yet, so I was
Right.
checking those out.
Mhm.
And those are they what are the type of them? I know you've been to a few Bigfoot conferences, but some
Yeah,
general paranormal, what are some of the ones that you
yeah,
like?
kind of like kind of my favorite conference. I MC it and I've spoken at it as well. It's called Strange Realities in Nashville, and the speakers are just the kind of speakers I guess I want to see. So it's like my
Mhm.
cup of tea. It's my like little subgenre in this world. So they just kind of like the subject, the way they approach these weird esoteric ufological occult topics like resonates with me. So that's why I think but it truly is a great conference. But I've been speaking in the Midwest locally, just the Van Meter conference in Iowa, the Nebraska Bigfoot conference. I'm going to Kentucky in a few weeks to go speak at the Cumberland Days in Somerset, Kentucky.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's I love it because I do a couple different lectures. One's like an overall weird history of Nebraska. Then I have like a more focused history where I take two locations and exhaust the weird history, and you find some really odd stuff, even like going way back into history. Like it's so yeah, I love research, and to me, like research is really it's like a high to me. Like last night I was up to 1 in the morning on newspapers.com, finding something about a moon woman in 1903 hovering above a barn, then turning into a little ball of light and flying away. And a bunch of people, I mean, like, so these are the stories you'll find if you're patient enough. And to me, it's like, oh, I love it. So yeah. Oh, wait, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
sorry.
That
Sorry,
was
I
me.
lost you for a second. Okay.
Oh, and now my camera.
Oh no.
Oh, no, hold on 1 second, it's coming. See, I got all excited. I think the lady in the orb was over here.
Yeah.
Um, but this is part of your lectures then. You're doing this kind of research and sharing stories that people have not heard yet. That's pretty epic. I love that. Do you
Yeah.
have you had any experience at all since a child? Like any sort of craft or
Nothing to speak of. That's like
nothing?
nothing I
Okay.
couldn't rule out with a mundane explanation. Like, because yeah, really, no, that's the ironic thing is that like I've put myself. I go to the haunted places. I go to locations where really weird stuff has happened all over the country. I work at anytime I travel. I always work in a day or two to go look at the weird stuff. But
Nice.
Heidi, nothing. I think I'm like kryptonite.
Nothing.
I'm repellent to all this stuff.
But I think that's kind of neat because then you don't have that fallback, I don't know, of a story. You can really dive into the research really well with
Yeah,
an
yeah.
open mind.
I
Mhm.
think that's like if I do anything well within this is like it's. I mean, it may not be research that a lot of people care about, but it's research that I guess I care about, and some people locally. I think there's like I think there's a small group of us out there who I really try to push like find the weird in your area. Like every place is weird. If you live in the Midwest Illinois, people know. I mean, Illinois is just teeming with weird stuff, but Ohio is,
Yes.
Iowa is, Wyoming is, Oregon is. Everywhere you look, even around like the little 100-mile radius, your little microcosm,
Oh,
go
yeah.
back in history and look, and you will find so much weird stuff. I promise. So I feel like if
That's
more
what's
people
so
did that, we could
cool.
start sharing more old stories that we've never heard, and maybe find some patterns and some reoccurring motifs. Like, why do things always happen by rivers, or where
Yeah.
there's
Why
geologic
is this
anomalies?
happening?
I don't know.
Sorry, hun. You're
No, it's
blowing me
okay.
out in a good way. There. Jeez. That's a
Boom,
first.
boom.
No, we're bringing in all that energy. I think that's
Yeah.
super important. My story started, at 5 as well, but in the Pacific Northwest. And I've
Ooh,
had
lucky.
experience there and then as a teen in Wisconsin. So, and for my mom and myself. So that's where I've been going on platforms and sharing those kind of stories. So I've been looking at those patterns and I have a lot of
Yes.
Midwest pals here, especially Midwest night watchers there. And pals with Jessica Jones, Cryptid Huntress, and I'm watching these patterns of where are these experiences happening and talking to a lot of experiencers themselves. And
Yeah.
so it's fascinating. But I didn't
I
think to that timeline of going way back and looking at the stories of the particular area. You have a lot of
yeah.
patience, I bet.
I do. I'm a big reader because I've been into these topics my whole life, and like even as a kid, it made me like a voracious kind of like I suppose like somewhat advanced reader because I was desperate for the information, but you couldn't get it on TV, or like it wasn't the stuff I wanted to learn about wasn't on TV. So I'm like I have to read these books, and I still do today because like while there's so much online, so many documentaries out there, I need to read books, especially old ones, to find out what I'm after. So
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
stuff, I think being into this stuff is like a way to broaden your mind and broaden your horizons and probably even become
Oh,
smarter. I wouldn't be as
yeah.
well read, that's for sure.
That's what's so cool. What about and hello to the chat. I'm sorry, I've been so fascinated here. I'm not keeping up with y'all. Thank you for that. And yes, paranormal pixie. I think it's the fairies that are doing that to me. What about it being in entertainment? Do now that your face is out there sharing all this stuff?
Mhm.
Do you get any kickback, or do people not know about that in the entertainment world, or do they
Um,
are they interested, fascinated for you?
well, it's kind of, I suppose I've been sort of like outed myself as a weirdo when I did like a drunk history Roswell
I love
reenactment. I'm not sure if
Benny.
your
That was a
audience is.
Benny.
Yeah, Benny. We love Benny Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome. I actually did a comedy festival with him like 2 months ago. It's really nice to
Oh,
catch up.
no way.
Yeah, it was great. It
Oh,
was really
these
fun.
names. That's awesome. You guys are amazing.
Oh yeah, Benny rules. But I can't remember what was I saying?
Oh,
Oh,
drunk
drunk history.
history
Oh
with
yeah. So
Roswell.
I did like a Roswell one, and then I pitched a show, or I actually shot a pilot for a show for Comedy Central about me going around to different like weird conferences and like embedding myself for like a week. And we shot the pilot, and then like right when they were going to go further with the show, like probably not do a whole season, but like 6 episodes. The pandemic hit, and then
Oh my gosh.
all the whole like development team at Comedy Central was fired in the like during the pandemic. And so then when that was over, I was like, my show was just gone, and and I was like, oh no.
Oh, no. I
But
hate
it's
those.
I'm doing other stuff, kind of like I'm shooting something right now that I'm not totally ready to talk about. It's still sort of secret,
Sure.
but
Sure, sure.
it's a documentary like series project. But yeah, I
Okay,
think
fantastic.
it's hard to do like high strangeness like in entertainment. It's because most of the time nothing happens, and it's really like if I don't mind that because I never expect anything to happen, but I'm hoping the journey is entertaining, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it would be fascinating, but if you are underneath a network, don't they kinda control the product a little bit? So they
Oh,
might
they
no.
control it
Mm,
completely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's
just
fun
it's
that you get
hard,
to
you
do your
know?
own thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll see if it works, you know, I'm putting a lot of time, effort, and my own money into it, so if it fails, I'll be like, "Oh, yikes. I'm in trouble." No.
Oh my gosh. With those, well, the conferences and things and speaking, my gosh, folks, chime in there. We need to get Mr. Steve Berg out on some of these other plateaus because I feel there's a lot of these, all of us with this same fascination of the research and these stories, but there's like pockets, there's groups, and I'm trying to find what's the bridge. How can we all unite? Because then, I mean, there's so many more of us than we realize that are actually interested in this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's not, belief being the not the word to use, but really interested in these people's experiences.
Mhm.
Do you see any division when you go to these conferences or like on your channel or anything? Do you see
Y
infighting or people,
y
oh, I don't, if you like them, then you're not true, or da da da
Well,
da da.
you know, it's I'm gonna put this wonderful positive spin on this because I have
Yay.
been paying attention and going to these conferences for so long, even before I've only been participating in this world for 2 really, 2 years maybe. So but I've been a lurker from the sidelines and participating quietly, but I will say, growing up, the UFO people didn't like the Bigfoot people. The Bigfoot people didn't trust the ghost people. The ghost people didn't trust the UFO people. That, while still, I think, maybe in the mainstream, there's, like, a division, but kind of the community I find myself in is where we're like, "I don't know, man. It might all be the same thing," you know, kind of like really radically open-minded, like skeptical, but radically open-minded. And
Yes.
so I'm
Okay.
not positive they're all different. They might not be just manifestations of different manifestations of the same thing. I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm saying like I'm open to that idea. So I have found that lately, and I think there, because of the writers like Jacques Vallée and John Keel, I think those books have become more popular in modern times, and people are very open to blending these genres together as opposed to
Yeah.
seeing them as totally separate things. Like, I'm a ghost person, I don't care about that other stuff. I'm seeing more ghost people who are interested in cryptids and UFOs now. So I think
Yes.
it's a good time in a lot of ways, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where that's where I lurk. I moderate some channels or I'm in these channels and I'm watching them and I'm like, "Wait a minute, but they just talked about that and you're
Yeah,
saying they're not like you." I go, "But you are. I saw it." You
yeah,
try
yeah,
to bring
yeah.
them together.
Yeah.
Nice, Neil. Neil, first first time call, long time
Long
lurker. I
time.
love ya. Have have you heard of Dave Schrader on the Paranormal 60
I
from
know that name, but
okay. Mhm.
I can't tell
I
if that's a local weatherman that I'm thinking of or but, like but the name sounds very familiar. What's
That's
Dave's deal?
awesome. Okay, I don't know him. Paranormal
Oh.
Pixie, I love her. She moderates so many channels. She said he'd probably love to have you on there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's been, I saw you, of course, on Facebook, Book of Faces, but
Mhm.
then did the old, how do I get that off? Do the search on YouTube. And so you've had a lot of interviews. I loved the one with the woman in the UK because you went for
Emily.
yes,
Yeah, she's a
that
great
was a
friend of
really good
mine.
one.
Thank
So
you.
you kinda, like, introduce new players in that sense to me too, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
when I get excited. I'm like,
Oh, good,
imagine if
good.
we're all like, "Ooh," because we
Learning
all
is
talk,
good. I mean,
Yes,
it's good and it's okay to change your mind. Like, I think
yeah,
there are people in this field, I do feel like it's maybe the older guard who are like, "This is what I believe, and I will not defer from that ever because I wrote a book and I need to sell that book still, and so I can't change my mind." But I feel
yeah,
like and that's fine if I'm not saying like a fixed belief system or belief in general is bad either. That it's just not for it doesn't compute for me because I guess I'm such a work in progress. I'm so far from where I want to be.
that's so funny. I don't think my viewers, I know you're gonna catch this. Has this ever happened with my camera? I hope you can hear me. I'm literally just talking in the chat. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Give me one sec. I'm here, Steve. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah,
Let me see what's happening with this camera, though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope everyone had a nice lunch today. Anyone have anything good?
What'd you have?
I had a nice salad. real nice.
You
So,
had a nice salad.
yeah,
Fabulous.
my garden's really pumped. I'm a vegetable garden grower, so my garden's growing. So I have like tomatoes. Tomatoes and cucumbers. I can't get rid of them fast enough. I'm getting tired of
I
them.
love that. That's beautiful. Wow. I'm not touching the comments, guys, because that's what was happening. So do huge letters if you want me to ask a question. Instead of pulling up, I'll just read it. But that was the first. Yeah, I'm like, whoa,
Whoa,
you're bringing the heat there, Steve.
sorry, sorry.
No, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. I'm excited for you. I really hope this show kind of takes off there a little bit because towards the end there, they were calling me craftspiracy instead of craft services.
Conspiracy. That's great.
And when I kind of, walked away from my kids, I'm a mom now too. When UFO stuff started making the news, they leak what
Hmm.
they want to leak when they want to leak it.
Hmm.
I even had a DP write me and said, "Hey, Crafty, your stuff's in the news. How do you
Yeah,
feel?" And I'm like,
your stuff.
the people, I know my stuff.
That's
I
great.
wrote it. But
That's
I
great.
was like, okay, I planted seeds. They're connecting the dots. But I learned the art, especially from improv too, that it's all in the delivery. It's the delivery how you give the information.
Yeah.
So I see some people, especially, in ufologies, maybe there's a lot like, it's this and it's, you're an idiot if you don't believe it, things like that. It's like you're gonna scare people away.
Yeah.
So what better person to champion, like a docu-series than like a comedian actor dude who's good with people and is a researcher. Not a lot of people dive deep, I think.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
have
yeah.
that can back up with the stories and stuff. You said Emily was being in the UK as a friend of yours.
Hmm.
Are you, because of you speaking out, like you go on one show and then you meet all these other peeps, do you have a
Yeah.
big web of people now across the planet? Are you
I mean, big is probably, I think like the way I'm into this stuff is actually pretty niche to where like, I definitely, I wouldn't look at this stuff so hard if I didn't think there was something to it. But I don't ever say even like what I think it represents. That's not even important because in a month I'll change my mind probably. But like, I guess I'm kind of like, I'm not, there's a lot of camps in this stuff. And it's like, people believe it's material aliens from another planet. Or people believe they're interdimensional, which I don't really even understand what that means. But I'm kind of in the thing where it's like, hey, I think there's something going on. I don't know what it is. And I also do love to kind of go through, like, especially with UFOs, because I'm pretty well versed in the history of it from 1945 until now. There
right?
is so much grifting and like really weird ideological, very problematic ideas that have been interjected into UFOs for a long time. And I do like to point that out. I do think some of these subjects need a power washing every once in a while. And UFOs is one of those subjects that I think people need to be constantly be very diligent
Mm.
to understand. Like a lot of this information is not good information.
Right? Or regurgitated. It's the same bit,
Yeah.
different day.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
I was pretty loud a couple years ago in all the groups, going to all the things and loud, loud, loud. And I realized the more I started learning, the quieter I got.
Yeah.
I just wanted to observe more. And then I'd see like the faces change with the stories, but the same
Right.
stories coming. And then I'm like,
Right.
huh. I know and then we said, and then I just turned to the regular people.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, it
do
is
you
what like a lot of
Mhm.
stuff, and I'm sure you found this with just like all kinds of like consciousness expanding research. Like the more you look into it, the more questions you have.
Yeah.
It's not like, at least for me, it's like I don't come to this thing where thinking like I figured it out. I know what Bigfoot is. Like I have more questions, and to me that is good, and I feel like I have better questions now than I did 5 years ago.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. In all your research, did you find any stories with kids? Have you found a lot of contact that kids share their stories of seeing ETs or Bigfoots
yeah,
or
I mean,
craps?
there definitely is. I
Mhm.
like to say a lot, like more than adults. I couldn't say
Not a
that, and I
mhm.
wonder if that is the case. Of that is that like a lot of parents may not want to share their kid's experience, or how does a kid report his experience? Like
Right.
So yeah, I mean that could be one reason we don't hear as much. But no, I mean there's definitely stories where kids are involved in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
encounter.
Yeah. That's what trips me out. And when I would have these little experiences, my mom didn't hush me. She'd
Right.
be like, yeah, and that was helpful. Whereas then I talked to other people and they're like, I think something happened as a kid, but I was told I was crazy. So I just
Can,
buried it in my mind.
can I ask you where in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
really familiar with weird Wisconsin because I go up there
Yeah.
twice a year to do some research with a
Oh,
colleague
nice.
of
Good.
mine. Yeah. So
Cool.
where may I
Door,
ask?
Door County. So Door County is our home, our roots, and we're like the peninsula. We're
Okay.
up here.
Okay.
And we were always on the Bay side. Egg Harbor was my experience. My family's still Sturgeon Bay. And then, and we were Madison for a while.
Oh,
There's a
I love
couple,
Madison.
Flying Chariots the Rise is out there in Madison. He's pretty great. Dustin, he might chime in a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Wisconsin still got some hot spots. They got a lot of
Oh
tales to
yeah.
tell, right?
I
Yeah,
mean,
the mounds and everything.
as
Mhm.
much as any place in the country. In fact, like I really would hold Wisconsin up against any hotspot state. I truly
Wow,
would. I mean,
cool.
and I think there's the receipts to back it up. Like it really is,
Yeah.
especially for like earthwork and like you were saying mounds. I'm very fascinated. I went and saw some mounds. Like the last 2 summers, I've visited southern Wisconsin just to go check them out, and they're unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
But the weird stuff does tend to. There's a history of weird stuff happening around these, like sacred earthworks, and I find that
Yes.
fascinating. So
Oh, yeah. Do you think it has to do with the water? Like being because they say there's
maybe,
so much stuff in Lake
yeah,
Michigan and yeah,
yeah. Well,
like
there. I mean,
underwater? Mhm.
well, Heidi, it is weird. Like all these manifestations of high strangeness happen very often by water. There are these geological patterns that
Mhm.
emerge when you look at this stuff. Like just in Nebraska, for instance, like we have like I think the third most like miles of rivers going through the state of Nebraska. And where all the weird stuff, most of like the really high strange, all of the stuff happens from the tippy top of eastern Nebraska to the bottom, right along the Missouri River.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's,
Ooh,
and maybe that's because
yeah.
there's higher populations there, who can say, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
is just what I have found, and it's
Oh,
fascinating.
wow. What kind? Is it mostly UFO contact or cryptids or what's
All
the
the above, all
majority?
the
All of it?
above. Yeah, well, so you have
Wow,
like
okay.
lots long history of Bigfoot type creatures before they were called, Bigfoot. The term has only been around since like the late 50s, early 60s, I think.
Mhm, mhm.
But before, you can find old newspaper accounts going back into the 1890s where we'll talk about an 8 foot tall wild man covered in fur.
Wow, no way. Okay.
Yeah, they just didn't have to call it Bigfoot back then, or like like they call them ABC alien black cats. But the Black Panther sightings are all down the river. There's old stories of from like 100 years from 100 years ago, like orange balls of light playing with the cargo ships going down.
I saw those as a
Structured
kid.
craft. You did see, I haven't
The
seen anything.
orbs. But you're meant to document. I bet you're meant to
Me,
research them and it'll all come together. They'll all happen at once.
I'm meant to be the nerd who
The
stays in the
orbs.
van and like you
I
get to
love
have the experience.
it. Well, that was Pacific Northwest was the orbs a lot, but some of my pals here in the Midwest, yeah. But I'm not surprised to hear that. Are you serious? Neil's my funny little fella. He's in the
What up?
UK. He's
What up,
castle dude.
Neil?
He tours castles. Have you seen Ghost? Have you seen a ghost?
No, no, I want to, and I've gone to plenty of places. Like, I've even been 2 times. I've been in places where, like, the person who like invited us, there's like, "Gosh, we almost always get activity," and then he's basically saying like, "What's up with you, man? Like, like you repel all this stuff." I haven't, Nick in the UK. I mean, I wish, like, I'm holding out hope. I'm not giving up.
Okay. Okay. Well, with that, there flicks love. Any embarrassing experience with paranormal stuff? Any research that you find is because I don't think you haven't had it in person, but what's kind of embarrassing research?
Oh my god, probably so much. I mean, like, I spent about 5 days, and I'm not even joking, documenting, or trying to document these kangaroo sightings in the 1950s of these like apparitional kangaroos who were like zooming across the Platte River when fishermen would see them. And I remember like doing a presentation, and everyone was like, "This guy has lost his mind." Like,
Was this in Nebraska? In
yes,
Nebraska.
yes.
Oh,
Well, I knew I was giving the
wow.
presentation in Kansas City, actually. But it was
Okay.
about Nebraska. Yeah, this happened in
Okay.
Nebraska.
Yeah, you don't get a
And
lot of ruse, eh?
you don't get a lot of kangaroo stories. And I think I had everyone with all the other stuff. And then when I got to the kangaroos, everyone was like, "Man, this guy's a wackadoo." And I'm like, "Guilty." So, but yes, have I had? I
Aw.
mean, like, look, I was embarrassed of this stuff as a kid. I didn't like I was like in the paranormal UFO closet. So like I was always embarrassed. Like it's
Oh
not
my
until like I
gosh.
became an adult where I was like, I don't care what people think. Like I like this stuff. I like weird stuff. Who cares?
Yeah. Are people in Nebraska finding you? Are they looking for you to share their stories
A little
and be
bit,
like,
yeah.
mhm,
That's been one of the great kind of symptoms of getting into this stuff is I do get stories, and some turn out to be, I'm pretty sure, just like stories people are making up. But then there's
mm,
stories where I can find other people have in history have talked about the same area having the same kind of event, and those are really exciting. And now those don't the ones that bear any kind of fruit don't happen often, but when they do, it's like I've gotten like because I like to cold case research like a Bigfoot sighting, for instance. I like to find these people 25 years later and then talk to them and see how their stories have changed, see what they think now. Because sometimes I think they're like, well, we were young and I think we were both trying to have fun. We probably saw a deer rustle through. We thought would be fun to think it was a Bigfoot. But then there's some people whose stories like, after I thought about this, it changed and I still don't go back in the woods. So to me, it's like, just because a case happened 25 years ago, there's still a lot we can learn from it. And if someone saw one thing in an area, well, you can oftentimes find other reports from that same area. And then what does that mean? So it means this is an area to watch out for. So yeah,
wow.
I think doing these, I do it a lot. Like, I still like work like, hard to like on my acting career or whatever. I try to
Sure.
separate them.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I'm done putting in that work for the day, I'm focusing on this stuff, and I'm calling like state parks. I'm calling
I was just gonna
historians.
ask you that next. What do you think of the national park stuff, with the people disappearing and
Very,
what's your
it's very creepy. I mean, like
Mhm.
I don't have like any theories about it, but like people do disappear. I mean, that what we do know factually is that I number of people disappear in these parks. Like, and then sometimes it's very weird, and sometimes I think people can look, put weird narratives on it, but they're very mundane things happen. Like someone got stuck out there, they got hypothermia, like, but yeah, there's definitely weirdness about some of these. I mean, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever read any of Whitley Schreiber's stuff? Whitley?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Communion
yeah.
messed me up.
It did. I
That
read
was
it. I read it as a kid. I mean, I was way too
Yeah,
young,
I
but
was a
like my
kid.
mom was a school teacher and she just wanted me to read. So she maybe regretfully now, but she was buying me books like Communion when I was like 8 or 9 or something. And I did read it and it scared me to death. It
It
did.
messed me
It
up. Yep.
it me too. Like I was not ready for that.
Yeah. That's when I was having my positive experiences, I guess you could say. I was like seeing the orbs and like fascinating, nothing scary. And then these shadow beings in my room and light, ships and, you know, um,
Wow.
grays and weird experience. And then I read the
Really?
book. I read the book and then I was like, they're coming for me. Like everyone it was all the shows were about the scoops in the arms across the planet. It was like in the news. And I mean,
It,
I was a sleepless child,
were you
basically.
experiencing things?
Yeah. I was experiencing things as a kid. Yeah, I shared those stories. And at
Oh.
that time, my mom was too. So we were in the same house in Wisconsin
Oh,
having these
wow.
nighttime experiences. So it was like, it was heavy duty. And it went away when I lived in Illinois and we went up there. We were fibs. So I don't know if you know what those are.
What is that?
F in Illinois bastards. I'm like, my dad pays taxes. We're in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But we eventually all live there now. But Chicago, I live in Chicago too. So when I go back to Chicago, things wouldn't happen. And then I went to school in Chicago and stayed in Chicago, and everything was dormant. But it was Wisconsin. Every time I went up there, you'd feel the beans in the woods. You'd have my mom would have contact
Wow.
with ships, loss of time. A lot of unexplained things. But it didn't feel good. Whereas Pacific Northwest always kind of felt good to me. I felt like
Yeah.
land guardians, and you were working with nature.
Right.
There, it felt like they didn't want us there for a while. I could feel underwater species, things like that. The stories
Amazing.
go on. It's pretty crazy.
Can I ask you what was the name of the? Do you mind if like now I'm like it was Door County?
Door County. Yep.
Is that
It's
DORR?
like, yep, DOOR. Yep. And it starts at just below Sturgeon Bay, where it's a lot of hot spots now. My sister has a wine jazz bar, and she used to host UFO night. So they tell stories, and it goes all the way to the top to Washington Island is at the tippy top, which is gorgeous.
I
And
love it.
it's really my buddy Aaron Moriarty. He has Truth Quest Radio. It's on Rumble, and he does 2-3 shows a week. But he had a UFO show there in Sturgeon Bay, and the police shut it down. The police said, he was just doing like a public access show,
Right.
and people were calling in their Wisconsin experiences, and these
Sure.
people shut it down, and they almost threw him in jail. And he's like,
What?
well, if it's not true, then why wouldn't you let me just air it? It's entertainment purposes
Yeah,
only. And they
exactly.
shut that shit down. I don't know what they're hiding. It's a lot of conspiratorial stuff.
Whoa, yeah. Well,
And a lot
that's
of
part and
locals
parcel with
talk.
UFOs. That's
Yes.
wild.
Yeah.
Oh, I am going to rabbit hole Door County like
Yes,
you won't believe.
please.
I will say, if any, I mean, 'cause this is like what I love. In like
Cool.
a couple of weeks, I'm going to send you a bunch of links, and you'll be like, "Oh my god, this guy stop!"
I can't wait. I got goosebumps.
I will find some stuff for you. I promise.
And check out Potawatomi Park State Park, because it's on the water, and it's part of the Ice Age, when all the tecton, I don't know all the terms, the plates. They've got a national trail there, but
Really?
a lot of activity along that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is exciting. That's I have something to do.
Neil, I see your little sass in there. Come on now. Go to bed. I'm just kidding. Never going to happen here. They've been trying for 50 years. The same question. Oh, this is my friend Moon. The same question remains in schools. What the hell is a meter? Oh, you're talking about meters and measurements. I know the conspiracy music. Yes, the police shut it down. So, but you might like him, Steve Berg, Aaron Moriarty. He's a lovely, lovely gentleman. He's been
Sounds
doing
like
this
it.
for decades, and been booted off YouTube a few times. Well, how has it been for you on YouTube? You're YouTube, but you're Spotify as well, right?
I mean, like I have taped like video or recorded video of all my shows. I haven't put them on YouTube yet because I've been lazy, if I'm being honest. I'm a one-man band, so just editing and getting the episode out to Spotify and Apple. Yeah, so I haven't had any problems at all. I mean, I don't like
good.
I'm not like really talking about anything other than like real weird stories that I don't think I'm in trouble for anyone yet. I hope
Well,
not.
that's good. Yeah. You are just sharing research you find too. So, you're not, it doesn't sound like you're blasting your opinions, stating them as facts kind of thing.
No, God,
So,
I don't know anything. I'm just a dummy. I'm a clown for a living. So don't listen to me.
Do you have, what's one of the, I mean, I know you started to share about along the Missouri there, but what's one of the one of the stories you share in your speech that makes people go wild, that they're just like, no way.
Well,
Like,
I have like a real love for flying wing humanoid stories, and we have, in my opinion, like one of the weirdest ones. And it was in 1957. A man by the pseudonym of Mr. Hanks was driving home, getting groceries from a bigger town close to Falls City, Nebraska, in southeast Nebraska, where a lot of weird stuff happens. And he sees like what looks like a very large bird in the sky, and he's like, "Oh, that's odd." And then he drives the car a little further into town, and he sees the thing get lower, and it's like kind of like wobbling, and it's like, it's weird. It looks like this bird is sick or having problems. Then it flies over his car, and he sees that it's a demonic looking creature with like wrinkly brown leathery skin, piercing blue eyes, like talons and stuff like that, with a shoulder harness for wings. They weren't organic. And this is in 1957. So then a little computer on his chest where he was like, this creature was like turning dials and knobs, trying to like course correct the bad flight. Mr. Hanks, he gets out of the car, starts walking towards it, and then gets paralyzed and frozen. Not like frozen with fear, but like literally, according to him, frozen with some kind of power. And this continues on. The thing gets lower and lower, almost to the ground. Then finally it turns a knob, course corrects, and shoots off. But this like messed this guy up. And I have actually spoken with the researcher Ray Boucher, another older Nebraska gentleman, to collect a lot of these stories, and he collected the story. So he has the providence of this is a real person. Now we can't obviously prove if his story was real or not, but to me, I love the story because it's got all the hallmarks of what I love. It's something that should not be in the sky. It's so absurd, surreal, and just like, what is that doing there? And like most flying wing humanoid cases, that we know of the last 100 years, it's more kind of Mothman like, where it's like
That's what I was gonna
organic
say.
wings,
Yeah,
where it's
that's
like
what yeah.
part of the creature. But this is
Yeah.
like a piece of technology that this thing was
That's
wearing.
what trips me out.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. So
Wow, that's amazing.
I always tell that one because like I feel like one, it's super unique. Like there are a couple other, I can find 2 other incidences where they're kind of similar, but not totally similar to this. But yeah, it's a fascinating one to me because it's just such a
Dang.
weird story.
That is true. Because yeah, once you got tech, I was like, the Mothman kind of situation. There are a lot in Shasta out
Yeah.
here. 'Cause I'm still there's a
Do
lot
you
over
live in
here in
Shasta?
the west. No, I'm still in LA. I'm
Okay,
still
okay,
in
okay.
LA.
I was gonna say, whoa,
Um,
Shasta.
but on here, meaning the West Coast, there's I did an episode of cryptids and Dogman. I've done like Bigfoot, Dogman, and then cryptids, like 80s cryptids, and
Mm-hmm.
with Jessica Jones and Barry Littleton. And I was trying to ask them about, because they're going all over the place bringing up stuff. Jessica Jones
Yep.
is fascinating with that stuff. Do you watch her? Are you aware of her? You
I'm
might really
not.
like her.
I'm
The
not,
Cryptid
no.
Huntress. So you
Okay,
would
I
like
love
her.
the name,
And
the Cryptid Hunter.
yeah,
That is
then that's her
familiar to me.
specialty. You might have
Yeah, yeah,
seen,
yeah.
and she goes to conferences and things too. So
Wonderful, wonderful.
but on Spaced Out Radio. But she's got some. That's her research. That's all that she sticks to cryptids,
Right.
and a lot of fascinating ones. But I've never ever heard of the one with the tech right on it.
Yeah, it's
That's a
super
trip.
weird. I do.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, California's got some great flying wing humanoid cases
I
too.
know. And still, and in LA.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a
well,
lot of
do you remember
beings
in
in LA.
2020 there was like the Jetpack Man?
Yeah, but
What happened with
were they
that?
just I don't what else, like all the stories, they're there and then they're gone and they get taken over by
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, I remember it was like to me it was right at the beginning of the pandemic where we're all like, hiding and doing our thing. We're not sure what the hell's going on if the world's ending. But I remember like the one like interesting story that didn't have to do with the pandemic was that there was a Jetpack
I
Man
forgot about
that had
that.
been
Yeah.
seen by a couple different pilots like flying into LAX. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh,
what?
I totally forgot about that.
That's great.
But now don't they have those guys like delivering food in Dubai?
Probably
Jetpack
it
Man.
might have been an early prototype of that. I mean, like that's very likely. But I will say this airspace is like totally 100%. You can't enter like the pathway of an LAX plane. Otherwise, you're
Oh
going
yeah.
to jail. Like
Oh, absolutely. All over the place. I mean, we have had a lot of that kind of crazy activity, even during those times, a lot of the
Mhm.
military craft going by and all the crazy things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
moved up out of the San Fernando Valley 2 years ago. I was there 22 years, and now I'm up a little higher. I'm in the next
Nice.
little valley over, still LA, and it's a lot quieter, but we have a lot less light pollution. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can do that ship thing. And now that I'm sober,
Yeah.
it's easier to share stories.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause people are usually like,
yeah.
you were just drunk.
But yeah, but the whole drunk excuse, I will say, like I've drank a couple beers in my time, and I've never hallucinated anything interesting like that. Like that, and that's kind of one of the old like things where people like remember Stephen Hawking's saying he's like,
Yeah.
how come it's only like drunks in trailer parks, which is such a classist thing to say, who see UFOs and all this weird stuff. I'm like, well, one, they're out. I mean, like if you want to actually break it down, Stephen Hawking's one, they're outside all the time. They live in nature, but like also like, what a classist thing to say. Like I'm very against like, well, a military F-14 pilot, so it must be true, as opposed to saying like, well, this farmer side, who's this farmer? He's probably some. I'm like, not to me. Like a civilian's case is always more interesting to me because a military case, I'm like, well, there's an agenda potentially behind what they're saying. So I believe
Yes.
civilians. I believe like a farmer's story much more than I'll believe a pilot's story.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I started getting really fascinated with Vic Cundiff does Dogman Encounters and My Bigfoot Experience, a radio show. So you just hear people telling their story. I shared my story on one of those, but I love it because you hear all walks of life,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
you hear the passion and the energy behind their story and the
Mhm.
way they create it. It's not like some big storyteller person. It's just the average person,
Yeah.
and that's what I love the most.
Agreed.
What about, do you have a lot of does Nebraska have the history of the passed down stories? I mean, I know you're researching online, but are there just like that everybody knows about, like the Native Americans or, some, I don't know. I guess that's
Yeah.
more of like, tell me more about Nebraska stories.
Yeah, well, no. I think your question was very interesting. So you're kind of asking, like, are some of these stories like multi-generational? Like, do they
Right,
kind of
right.
like, and the answer is yes. In fact, like, I recently, meaning like a year ago, I've been researching this bow hunter who had a very dramatic encounter with a Bigfoot-like creature. And it really, like, it was not positive. He was just like messed him up in a dramatic way where he didn't hunt for a while. He came from like, he hunted with his grandpa since he was like 4. Like bow hunting was like, he always put meat in his freezer and it was like important to him, like, but this messed him up. And I finally convinced this gentleman to take me out to the location where he, encountered this thing. And then and then it was kind of funny. He Googled me, but when I gave my name, and then he found that I had done like comedy stuff. And so he thought I was like trying to punk him, and I'm like, no, man, like I'm serious.
Oh,
Like
no.
I'm it's just like what I do for a living. It has nothing to do with this. So I had to reconvince him. But finally we went out there. And what was super interesting was that this was as rural as it gets. Very far away from any city. There's no post office. We were like we were outside of a village, about 15 miles outside of a village, where the village was 180 people. Like there's nothing out there. My cell phone didn't work. In fact, he sent me a picture of a paper map because like he's like, your phone's not going to work out here. I was like, oh, okay. So we meet at this place, and then he shows me this like tree line area where he saw this thing. And what was really interesting to me was there were a ton of these big log stick structures, which I had never seen in person. I'd only heard about and like seen online and in documentaries, books. And I did not know what to make of them. Like to me, I'm like, first off, it looked impossible for one person to do. So this person would either have to get his buddies, his big strong buddies, to create these stick structures. I have pictures of them and stuff, like just for me. Like this guy is not seeking publicity at all. So either he was doing all this to hoax me or something put these things there. And it was like unsettling to me. Then I spoke with the farmer who owned the land. And the farmer said, yes, there is a long history of this stuff happening. And also we see purple lights all the time. Like he was just throwing that away. It's like nothing big. I was like, whoa. What do you mean the purple lights? He's like, well, I'm the 4th generation to own this exact like huge parcel of soybean fields. And since his great granddaddy owned it, they talked about the purple lights. They called them fairy lights or Indian lights. And they said, just do not follow them. And I was like, well, that's like a pretty big detail too, like, so that's kind of an example of a multi-generational story. But also like in this place called Minersville, which is a ghost town, which is kind of like the epicenter of my focus of research. There are stories going back generations of a Bigfoot type creature. They would call him the booger of the hills or a wild man. They didn't have the terminology to call it Bigfoot back then, but they're describing a Bigfoot-like creature. So the stories of Bigfoot along the Missouri River go back to the 1800s. That's at least what I've been able to trace. Maybe even longer, so.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know a majority of your research is Nebraska, and like you're going to look up Wisconsin and stuff. But
oh, yeah.
Where else have you gravitated a lot? Where do you have your most other stories or research?
I try to mostly because I want it to be accessible by car and in a day. So I breach over into Iowa for sure. Because where I live in Omaha, I'm like 8 miles away from Iowa. So of course I'm going to look at Iowa too. And Iowa's got a lot of weird stuff too. And I look at Kansas. A lot of them, I always did look at California, but California is the most well-researched and well-documented state for high strangeness. It doesn't need my help, so I love California. I've read zillions of books about weird California and the beginning of the New Age movement and contactee UFO stories in the 1950s. I love it. I know it all, but there's nothing new I can add to it. So these Midwestern states are documented pretty well. Nebraska, not so much, but Iowa, pretty good. Illinois is very well documented. Ohio is too. Michigan. But some of these other states that aren't as well documented, I'm trying to do it, I guess. And for what reason? Like, there's probably gonna be 9 people in the world who actually care, but it's not about that. Like it's not about like there's no glory to be sought by researching small Midwestern towns for their weird stuff. But it's just a hobby, and I share it with anyone who's interested in. So.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, again, there's that bridge. It's going to help us unify and bring everyone together. We need those missing links of those middle states. So thank you for doing all that.
Yeah. Well, I do think there is something, and when I use the word enchant, I'm not like, meaning like totally like magical, but to a certain degree I am. But like I do think being into this stuff and like kind of taking it upon yourself to research it or go take a hike in a forest where there maybe weird things have happened, it is a way to adventure and enchant your life a little bit, because you can get bogged down with work, paying taxes,
The
doing the
3D is a little,
routine of
yeah,
being an adult, which is not
yeah,
all bad, but there's some things that suck. But when
yeah,
I have this stuff as a way to always keep my one foot in an enchanted world,
yeah,
because I'm open to all this stuff. I don't like I always like him, saying I don't have a belief system. I really don't, but like that doesn't matter to me. I don't need one. I don't need to operate with faith in this stuff. I think there's something to it, and that is enough for me to really spend a lot of time looking at it.
yes. I love that. Can I ask your opinion on something on LA?
Please.
Well, and High Brown Dwarf, he's in LA. He was at the epicenter yesterday. We've been getting a lot of rolling around lately. Did you been
All
seeing our
right.
little quake? We've had a lot of quakes lately.
Yeah, 4.7 is nothing. My friend lived, one of my best friends lives in South Pasadena. He's like, that was
Yeah.
the biggest one I ever felt in the 20 years I've been here. I was like, whoa, really?
Yes.
That's
It
saying
was
something.
a shaker. I had a friend that shook pretty hard with her kids in Browndorf. He has a shop right there, a skate smoke shop. And yeah,
Ooh,
I'm glad you didn't lose too much stuff there. And I
yeah,
got the
buddy.
one last week. I'm closer to the Bakersfield one. That was gnarly. That rolled us pretty good. But my point, not quakes, but Browndorf, good to see you. Glad you're safe and sound. What are your thoughts
Mm.
on the underground? Like the lizard peeps and the LA, the
I
underground system.
yeah,
What is
yeah, I
your
remember. Well, so yeah, the story is, if I'm remembering correctly, it's early turn of the century, 1913 or something like that. It was an LA Times article, right? And that's kind of
uh-huh.
where the story I think mainly comes from. God, it's been like
Hmm.
years since I looked at it. But this guy said he went down. There was like an underground subterranean I mean, I don't know if he said civilization, but like organized society full of like,
Hmm.
upright walking lizard people. I think it's a fun story. That era, though, I will say, in just looking at Nebraska and especially California, with there was a lot of newspaper hoaxes, and I mean a lot. Like they
Still,
were
still.
still right, right, but they were incredibly common, and they would a lot of times like. I think there's definitely something to the flying airship wave of the late 1800s and early 1900s, but a lot of them were definitely untrue. So while I think it's a fun story of lizard people underneath downtown Los Angeles, I mean, to say I believed in it would be like, I'm like, based on what? It was one
Exactly.
article, and like, but I think the story is fun. That doesn't mean I don't think it's important, because like, I think things are folklore until they're not. And I don't think I think folklore is more important. There's a concept called like folkloric ostension, which I'm very fascinated with. And that kind of means when people take folklore and then live it out. Like a good example, a modern example, is like the Slender Man creepypasta story, and
Oh
those
yeah.
two girls who acted out, the kind of Slender Man thing, and one ended up killing the other, like, and that's an example of folkloric ostension. So just because things are folklore doesn't mean they don't have societal ramifications. Like they certainly do. So all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stories are important, I think, and that is definitely an
They
important
are.
story.
I think I do. I agree. And I'm with you on like who's to say,
Right.
and what's the source. And I think nowadays too, more than ever, we have an information war going on. And the internet does not help with that. That's
No,
it's just
no,
there's
it's
so
it's
much out
confusing.
there. It's very confusing. And that's why we have to just really team up with just being human and each other. Hi,
Yeah,
Kira. Speaking
yeah.
of one of the most beautiful gals out there. Um, well, beautiful. Well, as we're winding down here, um, do you have any big I know you were working on your project. Any word
Uh-huh.
when that's gonna be? Or are we just gonna all send
Uh,
good vibrations to that? Or
well, thank you. I
like,
appreciate that.
I hope that works.
I'm welcome to all good vibrations. I'm actually going back down in 2 weeks to fit. We have like one more piece to film, like one more little segment. So we're going to go do that before the weather changes. And then when, it's like, I'm not involved. I mean, I'm involved in the post-production. I'm not editing it myself. So I'm
Right.
guessing before the holidays.
Sweet.
But we're working with a production company. So it's like, I don't exactly have full control over how, if it will be shot to TV or just put online, or we'll put it
Sure,
on
sure.
Tubi or Freebie or so. I don't know where we'll end up. So in terms of
Yeah.
like when will people be able to see it, it's like, I wish I knew. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the one thing I can answer. I hope sooner rather than later, because I'm really proud of it. So
I I'm so excited for you. I think that's
Thank
amazing.
you. Oh, it's
And
so
I'm
nice.
just happy to have another, an entertainment pal who's just, into this stuff. So
It's
that's
fun.
exciting. It's fun. And you just dropped another episode today on high strangeness,
I
correct?
did.
I think
Yeah.
I saw that before I came on.
Yep.
Who was that one with? Who's your guest?
He was a character actor named Galen Howard, who he's currently on that the new one of the Star Wars shows, the Boba Fett show, and he reached out to me just because he's really in. I'm a lot of what my show is too. It's it's like paranormal, UFOs, cryptids for sure, or weird
Okay.
history. But I also am a real counterculture nerd and kind of like underground art and outsider music guy. And Galen, the guest on my show this week, is a real like purveyor and lover of weird like underground media. And so that was a lot of what we talked about, but we did talk about weird Northern California too. So some vampire serial killers and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
damn.
yeah.
Sweet.
Every once in a while it's fun to depart and kind of do something a little bit different. So,
Sure.
I got to change things up to keep it exciting for me.
It is exciting. Oh yeah, real quick.
Mhm.
Jack Osborne. Did you know that he's involved in all this stuff too?
Yeah.
Have you ever crossed paths?
I have not. No, I've never met him at
Okay.
all. No, but
Okay.
I it's I'm all for it. Like this stuff is great. It's like I feel like not that I care if there's a stigma against it at all. It's like whatever, I'm gonna do, be into this stuff no matter what. I always have been. But like it is nice. I feel like people should feel safe to talk about their stories. And
Yes, thank
if
you.
media can play a role in that, and if your show can play a role in that, great. Like
Yeah.
the more
The
stories, the
merrier.
better, because we can't prove anything really. I don't think, at least I haven't, but like the stories are important, and sharing these stories
Yeah.
are important because we can learn a lot from them. And also they're
Agreed.
just fun.
They
At
are.
the end
They're
of the day.
just fun. I started getting a little cockeyed with it and being like, are they friend or foe? Are they going to
Yeah.
control the narrative? Because it's such a big name. And then I'm like, let's
Yeah.
just see more. The more the merrier gets
Yeah.
information. That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where are you most active? I know here's your Instagram,
Mhm.
but you have your IMDb. Here's your link tree. I have a link tree too. It's got probably all your links on there.
It
But
does,
are you on
yeah.
Facebook a lot?
Not
Did
a
you sh-
lot, but I'm
Mhm.
on Twitter. I'm just like saying stupid things on Twitter here and there.
Okay.
I post my shows to like Instagram. I should probably be better about social media, but like it's hard, man. It's hard to
It's so hard. Yes.
I'm not good at self-promotion, and I just don't like,
Aw.
it's hard to like post a picture of myself doing something weird. I'm like, God, you look so stupid.
Aw. Well, at least
No,
now
but
you know.
yeah. You can find me at Bergmaster 5000 and all that good stuff, if you're curious about what I'm doing or what I think
Yes.
about something. But yeah, I love
Yes.
this stuff. This has been super fun. Like I'm good for you for
Good.
doing this. I love it. I love it. Like
Thank you.
yeah.
Same thing though. Like I started twiddling my thumbs and I miss talking with people and out there and that's the beauty of social media. Is it's a love-hate
Absolutely.
relationship I have with it, but it's
I hear
bringing
you.
people together based,
You're
on these
100%.
themes. And it's so fun right there. Thank you,
You're
Jane,
right.
for sharing that link. And the
Yeah.
camera stayed on.
I think you said something really great though, right there, because I completely agree. Like I do think that the good might outweigh the bad with social media because of the connections. It's like
Yeah.
I was very lonely in researching these topics until I found like an online community who I'm like I feel like are very good friends of mine and will be for life, and some of the smartest,
Yay.
most interesting people you'll find. And like, look, we were able to reconnect
I
because of
know.
the internet. Like,
I'm like
and it's been
triggered.
really fun.
Yeah, I'm like, I could just smell one of Crowley's drinks.
Yeah.
It was like formaldehyde or something.
Oh man. Well, we were,
The best
young
pour.
and debaucherous back then. There's no doubt about that. But that was fun. That was part of the experience. It's part of the
Wonderful
journey.
time.
It
It was
was.
so great. And
It
here
really
we are
was.
now talking about paranormal.
You never know, right?
You never know. Which
Well,
kind
I
of
would
can
love
go
to have
hand
you.
in hand.
I'm gonna have you on my show because I'm gonna
Oh,
wanna I'm gonna want to hear some specific stories about your experiences. So I'll be reaching out
I
to
would
you.
be honored.
Please.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I love the stories. And
Yeah.
I would be absolutely honored to share
That'd
that.
be awesome.
And thank you folks for the chat. I mean, I was able to share that. They know this is the first with that camera thing, whatever it's wonky going on there, but that's why we love all this. That's why I love live.
Yeah.
It's like the improv days. But those days I had to get drunk before I went on stage. Now I'm sober. And things happen.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. Hang on for 2
Thank you.
seconds, though. I want
Of
to say
course.
goodbye.
No worries.
And thank you to the chat. Thank you, Carol and Jane. And I see you guys there. Hi, Leanne. Thanks for chiming in.
you have a very nice and polite chat. Like I've been in some
They're
chats
so
where
sweet.
they haven't been so nice. Like as I'm talking, like this guy sucks. You know, I'm like, oh
Aw.
man, not your chat. You guys are very nice people.
They're
Very nice
so
people.
cute. And don't be surprised if you hear from some of them because a lot of these folks have shows too.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, chime in, peeps. Yeah, thanks for bridging our communities, Mr. Steve. And folks,
My
I will
pleasure.
see you very soon. I'll vlog this week about my Leo season birthdays. And then I think we have a Synaptic Circle coming up. Maybe Steve, you'd want to do, I host another show, Synaptic Circle,
Ooh,
and
that's
it's
a
group
great
aligned
name.
minds. Yeah, there's like
I
three
love it.
3+, and we synchronize synapses based on a common theme or thread. And
I
that might
love
be
it.
kind
That
of fun.
sounds like an improv game. I love it.
Zip zap zap. Yep.
It sounds
Okay.
like weirdo zip zap zop. I love it.
Well, we'll get like some actors or something. We'll figure
That'd be
it out.
fun.
Okay.
I'm down. I'm down, sister.
Sweet. All right. Thank you everybody for playing, and we'll see you soon and see you next time.
Adios.
Cheers.